Hi, I'm Ashley from sellmycomicbooks.com. You're here because you want a free comic book appraisal, but you're going to have to do it the right way, otherwise you're wasting your time. So, I've developed a 4-step process. This is step 1, and I'm going to walk you through whether or not the comic books in your collection are worth anything at all before you've even gone to the trouble of listing them. How cool is that? Let's go! The first thing to tell you about is how the price of comic books has changed over the years. When Superman first appeared in 1938, it was 10 cents to buy Action Comics #1. Comic books have gradually increased in price over the years as the cost of production has gone up and inflation and so on. So by the time we reach the early 60s, comic books cost 12 cents, and by the late 60s, 15 cents. By the mid 70s, they were already 25 or 30 cents, and so you see how the progression of prices changes. And so you can tell how old your comics are just on the price on the cover. If you have 10-cent books, they're somewhere from the 30s to the 50s. If you have 12-cent books, they're from the 1960s. If you have 15-cent books, they're from the late 60s to the early 70s. 20 to 25 to 30 to 35-cent books come from the 1970s. And anything above 40 cents is 1980s or more recent. So let's talk about each type of comic book, because as well as the price on the cover, there's also the genre of comics that were published. If you have superhero comics, you're in good shape. If you have horror comics, they're very popular. If you have crime, depending on how graphic the images in the books were, they're very popular. If you have westerns, romance, TV shows, funny books like Dennis the Menace, those things not as popular anymore. Archie comics are usually pretty popular if they have 10 cents on the cover. Romance books, depends. There are some very popular romance books, but most of those are not worth very much. The bottom line is, if you have superhero comic books priced anywhere from 10 cents through to 35 cents, you've got something worth making a list of. Especially if you've heard of the superheroes, so Captain America, the Avengers, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, those guys with 10 cents to 35 cents on the cover. You want to list all of those. Once you get to 1980, there is a very limited amount of key issue comic books, which are the most valuable comic books of that era. I want you to take a minute to look at the links I've put below this video, where there are the most valuable comic books from the 1980s and the most valuable comic books from 1990 to today. Those are the valuable books from this era. Anything else, I'm afraid, doesn't have a lot of value. So now you're saying, okay Ash, I've got something worth listing, what do I do now? The answer is, you click the arrow just here and you go to the next video which explains exactly what you do now. See you there.